Hi, it's Jim from Krazydad. Today we're going to solve a Kravitz Sudoku, which is a hybrid Sudoku that combines windowed containers with consecutive clues, which are these little hot dog looking thingies. And it's named after Gladys Kravitz from the old show Bewitched because she used to like it to peek at her neighbor through the windows. And consecutive cells are neighbors. And this has windows. Yeah, I don't know how I came up with that. Let's talk a little bit about Sudoku on the site in general. A few years ago, I added a lot of Sudoku puzzles to the site, and most of them are way down at the bottom, and they have these big icons where you can see the whole puzzle. There are so many varieties, it can be kind of confusing. I have these filter buttons that winnow down what you're seeing down here. So if you just want spatial reasoning puzzles, for example, you click that. If you just want Sudoku puzzles, you see that. But you'll notice what happens when I click on the Sudoku filter is you get a bunch of extra filters. And that helps you get it down even further. So if you just want puzzles with windows, you can just get the ones with windows. Now, a lot of these, or some of these, are related to the containers in the puzzles. The simplest is Center Dot, which is a puzzle that adds one additional container. And by containers, I mean the things that contain the thing that contains the containers, the thing that contains the digits 1 through 9. So rows, columns, 3 by 3 blocks all contain 1 through 9 in a regular Sudoku puzzle. But here, the center dots also contain 1 through 9. So this puzzle has one extra container. Moving up, there are the diagonal puzzles, um, such as this one, which have two diagonals, and so that's two extra containers. And then there's a diagonal plus center dot called Prisoner X, where you get three extra containers. And then the windowed puzzles, where you get four extra containers. And I don't actually have a straight up windowed puzzle. I should probably add one. But, you know, um, these all combine windows with something else. So this is windowed uh, plus comparisons. Actually, let me click this link. Oh, I don't even have an interactive version of that. Actually, I do, but it's under a different name. Uh, so confusing. Okay, so this one is windows plus diagonals. We already looked at that one. This one is the one we're going to solve, windows and consecutive clues. This one is windows and jigsaw shapes. So instead of 3 by 3 blocks, it's jigsaw shapes. I'll do another video on jigsaw because that has its own strategy. This is the same one we just looked at, jigsaw shapes, windows, and consecutive clues, which we'll talk about in a bit. And the Kalo puzzle is something called a frame Sudoku, which I won't talk about in this video, but it adds these extra clues on the columns. And then the Chagall, which I added recently, which uses crop key clues. And there's a separate video about the crop key clues, the black and white circles on these puzzles. But today we're going to talk about Kravitz. So let's take a look at a Kravitz puzzle. So the Kravitz puzzle, I'm going to fill this one in, have consecutive clues. And by that I mean that each neighboring pair of consecutive numbers has one of these hot dog symbols next to it. And that means that the two numbers are consecutive, like 6, 5, 1, 2. And it can happen vertically, 5, 6, 3, 2, etc. Every single neighboring consecutive pair in this puzzle will have a hot dog between it. And very importantly, that means every non-consecutive pair will not have a hot dog, or whatever you want to call that thing, a consecutive clue. So if you don't see a hot dog, it's not consecutive. It can't be 2, 3. So that's what the consecutive clues do. And then again, the gray windows have the numbers 1 through 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, so you have these four extra containers. But in reality, you may not be aware of this at first. If you've done these puzzles before, maybe you are. You have 9 extra containers. Why is that? Well, let's take a look at these 3 columns right here that have the 2 windows. Each of these columns has the digits 1 through 9. So there are 3 sets of 1 through 9 digits in these 3 columns. This window has the digits 1 through 9. This window has the digits 1 through 9. So that means left over in these 3 columns are these squares, which also have the digits 1 through 9. And if that's not immediately clear, go back and play that again a few times. So in addition to these 3 columns also have an additional hidden container, 1 through 9. These 3 rows, which have these 2 windows, have hidden containers. These 3 rows have hidden containers. So that's 4 additional containers on top of the 4 windows. That's 8. And then there's some cells that are left over. How many cells are left over? 9. It's the corners, the middle cells, corners, middle, corner, middle, corner. All those 9 cells contain the digits 1 through 9. 9 extra containers. Pretty cool. And it makes the puzzle a lot easier to solve and also helps reduce the clue count. So let's do this Kravitz puzzle, shall we? The first thing I'm going to do is look at these adjacency clues and start filling in numbers. I know the 3 is adjacent to a 2 or a 4. I could go over to the keypad here and type the little marks and use the X to blank them out. But for the most part, while I'm solving this, I'm through long force of habit, because I like typing, I'm going to use my keyboard to do the typing. So you hold on the Shift key and type 2, 4. Use the space bar to clear it. All the puzzles on the site can be controlled completely by keyboard. And if you find one that can't be, let me know. So that's a 2 or a 4. The 7 is adjacent to a 6 or 8. The 9 can only be adjacent to an 8. And there's another 8 here adjacent to the 9. The 7 is adjacent to 6 or 8, but there's already an 8 on that row. So it's a 6. And we've narrowed down the 6 here. I had originally typed 6, 8, but when I typed the 8 down here, it blanks out the 8 because I have auto clear marks turned on in my settings. There it is, auto clear marks. Because I'm using auto clear marks, I generally only make marks when I know every possible number for a cell, and that way when the cell gets reduced down to 1 number, I know for sure that's the value. Looking at this, I can see that there must be an 8 in this 3 by 3 block on the upper left, but I don't know where the 8 goes. So it can't be in these gray squares. It can't be in there. Can't be in there because we've already narrowed those down. It looks like it could be either here or here, but you may have noticed it can't actually be here. Why? Because we have that hidden container and there's already an 8 in that container. So that can't be an 8. So it must be here. And this has 2 adjacent numbers, which are 9 or 7. But this one can't be 7 because there's already 7, so it's 9. Looking at column 3, I'm looking at the 3s, actually. There's already a 3 in column 1, and there's a 3 in column 2. So one of these 2 cells must be 3 in this block, and it can't be this one because it's sharing a container with a 3. So there's a 3. And now there is something interesting going on, which is we have this gray block, which has a chain of adjacency clues. And when you have 3 or more, they make a straight. So it's either going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, or 4, 3, 2, 1. And then there's another pair of numbers here that are also adjacent, that are separate from this chain. Now, let's consider what happens if this is 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the remaining numbers are 1 and 6, but 1 and 6 aren't adjacent. So it can't be 2, 3, 4, 5. It must be 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, and then the remaining numbers are 5 and 6, but 6 can't be adjacent to the 7 because there's no clue there, so they're reversed. And now we know that number's 7, that number's 4, and there's a 1. And now that upper block is complete, as is the upper left gray window. I should point out that when you're solving these puzzles, sometimes you might use a trickier strategy like the one I just used. You don't actually need to on these early puzzles. You know, we're just on book 1 right now, and the puzzles get progressively more difficult from book 1 to 100. And typically in a book 1 puzzle, you should be able to solve it with fairly easy, straightforward strategies. Just in this case, process of elimination for containers, basically. But that won't stop you from using any strategy that happens to catch your eye. And that's what makes puzzles interesting, because even though a constructor may design the puzzle for you to have a certain solving sequence, people are going to solve them in different orders. There's always 2 paths you can go down. Everybody solves differently. That's a good thing. Looking at column 4, I can see that there's only one place to put a 3. These 3 squares are out of contention, so our 3 goes here. Its neighbors are 2 and 4. Neighbors here are also 2 and 4, but there's already a 2 in that column, so it must be 4. And this makes a straight 3, 4, 5. The remaining numbers in column 4 are 2, 4, and 5. But 2 of those numbers are adjacent, which are the 4 and the 5. So this must be the 2. And these 2 are 4 and 5. I can see that there's already a 3 in this row 7. There's already a 3 in row 9. So one of these 2 cells is 3. This one can't be 3 because of the column it's in. So there's a 3 here with some neighbors. Looking at this middle 3 by 3 box, there can't be a 3 here, can't be a 3 there. So one of these 2 is 3, and then one of these 3 is 3, and the only one that can be 3 there is that one, which again has 2 neighbors. The 3 in this in this middle box is also knowable because it can't be in this square, so this must be the 3. Is that all our 3s? We're close. There's a 3. Okay, we've got all our 3s. That first hidden container has all but one cell, and the cell that's missing is 2. Let's take a look at the center square. I have this cell as 4 or 5. It can't be 5 because 5 is not adjacent to 3, so that's a 4. Oh, that's a 5. The remaining numbers here are 1, 2, and 5. 2 of those numbers need to be adjacent, so that's the 1 and 2 here. And there's our 5. These 3 numbers at the end of row 4 must be adjacent. They must form a straight, and they must include a 5. So I think it's got to be 5, 6, 7, or 7, 6, 5. But either way, there's a 6 in the middle, and they got to include a 7, so this must be a 9. These are 5 and 7. This can't be a 1 because there's already a 1 in that column. I missed that when I was first doing that. There we go. Our middle box is complete. This 3 is adjacent to either a 2 or a 4, but we already have a 4 in that row, so that's a 2, which means this is a 4. And we got another 4 here. And what's left on row 5? 1, 5, 1, 5. But 5 is adjacent to a 4, which is not allowed because there's no clue, so that must be a 1. That's a 5. This next number is either 6 or 4, but we already have a 4, so it's 6. Adjacent to the 6 is either a 5 or a 7, but it can't be 5, so that's a 7. And then we can finish out that block with a 1. The 3 numbers here are going to be 2, 8, and 9. But 8 and 9 are adjacent, so they're not allowed to be together because there's no adjacency clues. So the 2 must be separating the 8 and 9. In column 3, there's 2 numbers remaining, which are 6 and 9. 6 has to go here because it can't be adjacent to the 5. And there's our 9. We can finish that window now with the 8 that's missing from it. The remaining numbers in column 1 are 1, 2, and 7. The 7 will be adjacent to this 8. Only a 1 can go up here because of the adjacent 3. And then we have the 2. So now our first 4 columns are finished. We're making good progress. This 5 is adjacent to a 6. In column 6, the remaining numbers are 4, 8, 9. 4, 8, 9. We already have a crossing 8 and 9, so there's our 4. There's another 8, 9. This 4 is adjacent to a 5. The remaining numbers in this row are 6 and 7. Adjacent to this 8 and 9 are another 8 and 9. I can see in these 2 cells that this one can't be 7 because it needs to be adjacent to either 7 or 5. So this must be our 6. This is 7. There's our 5. There's our 7. We have one remaining cell in this gray window, which is 1. The 2 remaining cells in row 2 are 2 and 4. This one shares a cell with a 4, so it must be the 2. And there's a 4 here. That means this is either 8 or 9. And these 2 are 8, 9, or 5. However, this one can't be 5. So there's our 5. We can complete column 7 because the 8s and 9s are accounted for. The remaining cell is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 2 remaining cells in this gray window are 8, 9, and 7. This one can't be 9. This one can't be 8 or 7. So there's our 9. There's our 8. There's our 7. There's a 9. And this thing is starting to come together. There's an 8 and a 9. There's a 9. We can complete row 8 with a 4. We don't have a whole lot left. In this lower middle box, the remaining cells are 7 and 8. So that must be 8 because of the crossing 7. And there's a 7. We've got a 2 here. We've got an 8 there. And we've got a 1 in the corner. And we're done. That looks interesting. Anyway, happy puzzling.